is Kareem Hassan, and he's going to be talking about emerging technologies. How, say, emerging technologies, if emerging technologies can help particular economies, say emerging technologies evolve, if you will, from zero to hero. I love that title, by the way. How you doing, sir?
Hello.
How you doing? I
Yeah,
love
nice
that, man.
meeting.
Zero to
Yeah,
hero. I love that, man. That's
you
what?
know,
That's a book title. That you need to go. You need to run with that, man.
okay, thanks a lot for yeah
Absolutely. So
for
look,
liking
so
the time,
go
for
ahead.
liking the topic of the presentation. And actually, yeah, this was driven from my participation at the Egyptian Revolution. I'm originally Egyptian, however, I'm living in Jordan. And yeah, it was all the time during the revolution about the change making and how to convert this mass of young people into heroes. Okay,
You're right.
so and we considered that before the revolution we were like under the zero level, and then after the revolution we started to change the system, and then now we are going to be heroes and change makers, the whole influence the entire wallet. This is why this terminology is stick into my mind. And then when I was in a discussion for preparing this presentation, this popped up into my mind again, and I decided to use it. So
Oh, good. So I like.
let
I'm gonna
me.
tell you. I'm gonna tell you. I'm gonna tell you this real quick for your presentation. And I saw the title.
Yeah.
It reminded me of a song, a rap song from one of my favorite hip hop stars. His name is Doug E. Fresh. So if you put in Doug E. Fresh, Zero Hero, I was in one of his songs. He's saying, drop that zero and get with this hero. So that's why that title really resonates with me.
Yeah,
But go ahead. You can tell us about your background. You've already told us a little bit about that, and then go right into your presentation, and I will ask you some questions on the other side.
Okay, perfect. So yeah, I'm Kareem Hassan. As I mentioned before, that I'm originally Egyptian, and nowadays I'm leading the United Nations ESCWA Technology Center, which is a regional center located in Amman in Jordan, and it serves the entire Arab region. At this center, we are aiming at empowering Arab communities and entrepreneurs to be able to design and implement and scale local technologies and regional technologies, and convert them into solutions that serve the regional sustainable development goals. So yeah, this is a quick background on myself, and I used to work a lot in the last decade on understanding technology, appropriate technologies, and how to transfer these technologies into realities and solutions that serve local communities and tackle national SDGs. And now I would like to share my screen and talk a bit about my presentation, which is Frontier Technologies. How could emerging economies evolve from zero to hero? We at emerging economies and mainly developing countries, including the majority of Arab countries, we are facing lots of what we call STI challenges, science, technology, and innovation challenges, where most of the people are thinking in a kind of sectoral way, and there are lots of overlapping. So either we have like people thinking in separated and isolated islands, and they are not cooperating with each other. There are lots of overlapping, and people are doing the same work that other organizations or entities are doing. This is why lots of resources are lost in the way. And also the inactive and dependent communities, where people are leaning on governments and international organizations to lead the technology, innovation, and entrepreneurship in their communities. Also, there are lack of skills and abilities in the majority of these communities. And in our Arab region, for instance, there is a shortage of published knowledge, for instance, in Arabic, and the same thing also for other regions as well. There is a shortage of knowledge in the field of technology in local languages. Also, if you are implementing a specific technology or solution, there is a very obvious weak monitoring and evaluation systems, support cycle deficiency, and inefficient financial management. Wherever you will go in a developing country and ask them what's your main problem, they will say to you, we don't have money. However, most of these economies are spending money in wrong ways, or they are doing non-appropriate investments in technologies and infrastructure for technology. And also all of that is coupled with improper legal frameworks, where if you will have the solutions and if you will have the momentum of the technology to invent something, you will be stuck by the boundaries of the legal frameworks. So all of these challenges are really heavy on most of emerging communities. If you will deal with or tackle one of these challenges, you will get trapped in the other challenges as well. So there is a need to solve these problems as a package. It's like a spaghetti plate, you know. You cannot just pick one spaghetti string out of the plate. It will be mixed up and jointly fixed with other spaghetti strings also as well. So the problem is complex and lots of elements are connected together. This is why for developing a solution, it should be also inclusive. We shouldn't only focus on one direction and eliminate other elements or factors or indicators or whatever. So this is why here, thinking about a solution to turn the situation from zero to hero, there is an approach we invented at ESCWA Technology Center, or it's not a new thing. It's just using available methodologies and thoughts also as well. So we thought that the technology and innovation wheel, which could be based on four main pillars. These pillars are, first of all, promoting open applied knowledge and building up applied knowledge resources. And having these knowledge resources or open source knowledge platforms will help the communities to understand technologies, the complexity of technologies, and how to transfer technologies from knowledge to practice. And then the second pillar, which is capacity development. Having the applied knowledge in place in local languages, it's important to be transferred from books and online platforms to the minds of the people. So it's important to have capacity development on the knowledge resources that we built. And then the third element, which is the practical implementation support, which is very important to understand the supporting schemes in different communities and how the communities are supporting the establishment or the design and implementation of appropriate technologies, and what are the cracks and what are missing there in these cycles, and then to support them. I'll talk about these elements later. And then the last but not least, for sure, is the enabling environment. Understanding the enabling environment, understanding the gaps in the enabling environment, and then working on them. So having this loop of activities to be done and elements or pillars to be considered and put into place for implementation, that will speed up the transfer of frontier technologies from zero to hero. So let's dive deeper into these four main pillars. The applied knowledge platforms and toolboxes in the field of technology and frontier technology, and also couple that with innovation and sustainable development and also entrepreneurship, should be covering all the elements of needed for establishing local technologies or emerging technologies. We are talking here about like there are lots of classifications for frontier technologies, and some resources mentioned there are like 40 technologies, but here I think they all could be categorized in four main elements, like AI, for instance, artificial intelligence, big data and its applications, the Internet of Things, robotics, 3D printing, and 5G connectivity. Adding to them also the importance of having drones and their applications in different sectors, blockchain, and now it's really getting into the market, solar panels and renewable energy, nanotechnology, and gene editing or engineering. So these technologies could reshape the future in lots of emerging economies. You and investing in these types of technologies, it doesn't require lots of financial resources, and this is why it's important to have knowledge or disseminate knowledge about these technologies. It's not expensive technology, it doesn't mean expensive. Advanced technology, it doesn't mean it's expensive. But what it should mean to us that these technologies, we could utilize the appropriate technologies from them into our communities. So it's important to understand them, to disseminate their knowledge in local languages, and let the people and empower the people to think about them and think how to transfer these technologies to their communities. And then I have here a really nice publication published by the UN, the UNCTAD Technology and Innovation Report 2021. This report, it illustrates how countries and regions are investing in technologies. So it's important to see your country and its place in this map and its rank, and what are the main elements needed to be considered to overcome the challenges in your community, and what are the classifications of frontier technologies and emerging technologies and how to invest in them. So it's an open source publication, so everybody can access it. Just Google it, you'll find it, download it, and you'll see lots of interesting materials. Second of all, capacity development. It's important to utilize the knowledge of these toolboxes that we can build and knowledge materials to transfer them into the minds of the people, mainly like researchers and innovators, local researchers and innovators. They need to adapt these technologies to their communities. Entrepreneurs, where these people will invest, are turning these technologies into businesses, and this will confirm the transfer of these technologies and also open lots of job opportunities in their local communities also as well. And for sure, the community of practice, the people, the users of these technologies, they needed to be also educated about these technologies. And last but not least are the policymakers, who are in a big need to understand how these technologies could help their countries, and also how them as policymakers could pave the roads for these technologies to be disseminated and mainstream to their communities. And then having these people educated and their capacities are built for on frontier technologies and emerging technologies and appropriate technologies, we will take them to the next step, which is the practical implementation and its support. There are lots of steps, 4 main steps for converting an idea in technology to a scalable product in the market. The first step is how to support transferring ideas into prototypes, which is mainly could happen in research facilities or at universities, research institutes, or at also companies where they help people or help a community to ideate and build prototypes. Then the second stage, which is converting prototypes to products, which is also an essential phase where lots of like the first step, lots of ideas, yeah, can fail when turning to practicality as a prototype, and lots of prototypes cannot be turned into products. So um, having the successful prototype turned into a product, this is a big investment and a big need in emerging economies. Lots of people are investing in real products, so they don't invest a lot in ideas. So turning from step one to step two directly and quickly, and having the supporting scheme there working and functioning, that will be very helpful for innovators and entrepreneurs. The third step, which is turning products to the market, like having successful products turned into startups to be able to transfer technologies into successful businesses. And then afterward, transferring these successful products in the market to scaling up across the regions and also globally. So these four steps, we should, at each of our communities and countries, we should consider all of them. If we are just supporting products to market, like lots of the world now is full of incubators who are dealing with products and turning them into startups. But then we are stuck at this stage. We don't help lots of successful startups or viable business models to scale up, and because scaling up will help multiplying the impact of these startups and technologies. And also the first and second steps, they are really lacking into many in lots of emerging economies, where people are not supporting the transfer of ideas to prototypes or to products. So we need to reconsider our structures and support structures and focus on the four steps in equal or at least in a justified way. And the fourth element here, which is the enabling environment. It is important to understand who are the key players in the enabling environment, who are responsible for supporting these technologies. Like here, for instance, if we zoom in and see that it's important to have all business incubators on board and the financial supporters understand the private sector and their key players and the public sector as well. It's also important to realize who are the supporting bodies and available NGOs who are supporting technologies, and map all the policies, strategies, and legalizations. See if they are professional enough or facilitating enough the transfer of technologies in local communities, or they are shaping a kind of a boundary or a barrier for people to work and innovate or disseminate these technologies. Also, it's important to understand who are doing the research and what are the available innovation facilities, and the technology transfer offices and IP offices and legalization offices. All of these should be mapped in the first place. Identify the main gaps in this map. What are the missing factors? What are the missing elements? What are the missing policies or the private sector or the public sector supporters, whatever, Seeing this map in each community, in each country, understanding this map, understanding the gaps, this will help us to roadmap our STI, science, technology, and innovation plans. So these four main pillars, if we have a deeper look at them and consider building appropriate platforms or knowledge platforms in local languages, having proper capacity development modules and training programs, and considering the four main steps of technology transfer, and also working on strengthening the local and national enabling environments, that will help us a lot to convert technologies from ideas to practice and help communities to convert themselves from zero to hero. Like a quick example on that, we could, for instance, if we want to establish a program for digital health innovation, we could build an integrated toolbox for like online toolbox, knowledge toolbox for health innovation and technology that can respond to COVID-19, for instance, and then transfer this platform into trainings and um, training programs and train people who are really into this technology. Promote the successful technologies across the regions, and then build a kind of knowledge and innovation community and establish or strengthening the enabling environment around this technology, for instance. So this could be a practical implementation. You can remove the digital health innovation and put like advanced agriculture technologies. The same thing you can do, or advanced renewable energy technology. So if you this loop, it could be applicable to whatever type of or title of technology where you want to establish or implement or in your community. So yeah, I don't want to make it longer than that. So thanks a lot for listening and for your interest to attend this presentation. And I'm looking forward to your inquiries. Thanks a lot.
I love that, man. That was really good. It flowed. You have a very easy way of breaking it down. And like I said at the top of the your presentation there, zero to hero. I'm telling you, you have to push that worldwide, man. You got to do it. I want to see you giving this in India, in Egypt, in Mongolia, in Chile, wherever. I'm telling you, they're like zero to hero. I can see it, man. Look. But beside that, you bring up some good stuff about like how emerging technologies can use emerging economies, if you will, can use emerging technologies. The one thing I noticed during the pandemic, right? We've seen internet usage completely skyrocket, maybe upwards of 70-80%. So people are online, a lot of app communication, and then also the explosion of usage of video streaming services like this one. So, that brings up the issue of a digital infrastructure. And I know that, from different UN data that currently between 50 and 55% of the world is online, right? And I know that the internet is really it's a lifeline, for a lot of people, and individuals who are on it are making money. They're searching for ideas. They're able to do a number of things and connect across borders. So talk to me about I know you're fully aware, definitely, of the need of a digital infrastructure in the current, right now in the current scheme of things. So what are some of the ways that you believe that we can close the gap for, this other 45%, which is largely rural, right? Largely female, and not quite as educated as those who are online right now?
Yeah, actually, um, there are lots of nice initiatives worldwide to transfer the infrastructure to the people. So it could be hard to build infrastructure. Like for instance, if we are talking about a remote community, a remote village in the mid of Africa or North Africa, in Egypt, for instance. Okay, so it would be hard to extend the infrastructure to that. But some initiatives were really nice to have a kind of a truck with computers and internet, Wi-Fi or whatever, and it goes there for some time. It gives some classes to the people. It educate them. At least you will pick up what we call them like a community champion, a person who is really interested into this topic, and he or she get educated about the topic, and then this community champion will coordinate with the movable infrastructure or the what we called them at that time transferable internet studio or whatever. Okay, so and this person was in contact, direct contact with the people who was responsible for this track, and from time to time they made some classes at for the rural communities, educated them how to utilize even and to use their mobile phones. In lots of rural communities, you'll find people with mobile phones, but how to use them and utilize them to the maximum. What are the useful apps? What for instance, for women hygiene and for women well-being in rural communities, there are lots of apps, lots of material where they can use. So it's this kind or this scheme of having blended learning modules and bringing the knowledge to the people. This is really an important issue to invest in. It's all about also building the capacities of change makers. So if we are talking now to the 50% of the people who are using the internet, how we could empower them and motivate them to go to these rural communities to educate other people. So it's important to not ignore also the people who are already on the internet, but how to utilize their efforts and minds and available resources to go there to these people and empower them or build their capacities.
Okay. And I think once you get a digital infrastructure together, now you start talking about, this data that's coming in, right? So I guess the issue, question here is you have two different approaches that have emerged, right? You have, as it relates to data, privacy, and so forth, that I'm sure an emerging economy is going to want to consider. You have the China approach, where their citizens, readily share data for different things. And then you have the European approach, which is like completely different. So, talk a little bit maybe about that, and maybe even the perhaps maybe some sort of hybrid or in-between approach that maybe an emerging, economy might consider.
Yeah, actually, sharing data and having open source platforms, it's a big question. Like if we could invest in open innovation more or facilitate IPs, okay, or intellectual properties. So for mainstreaming IPs, that will help lots of businesses to emerge and to grow also as well. Like I have my own invention or I have my own data that I spend lots of resources to build them. So I have the rights to get benefits out of it. And the other approach, which is open innovation. So everything is open source. So whatever I'm doing, it is for the public. Actually, we should have both directions, and we should increase both of them.
Okay.
And in the middle, we could have some some approaches where, yeah, we can have open source or we have private IPs for a certain amount of time and then making them open source. It's
I like that.
important also to invest into social innovation, where it's tackling an obvious problem with a simple solution. So it's not a big deal and it's not a property, but if you copy this into your communities, that will be applicable, and that will help lots of people. So we should keep all of that and invest in all directions. We shouldn't. There is no one solution fits all. It's important to understand our community, what is best working there, and then invest in it. So we cannot say open innovation is the most appropriate thing, or having everything protected, this is the best thing. So but a balance between both of them, that should be mainstreamed.
And real quick, of the emerging tech that you see out there, obviously you're on the front line of this. What particular technology, do you see? Really foresee maybe having, sort of the best transformational value for emerging economies right now? Is it AI? Blockchain, or is it just really more of a blended kind of situation, and not one technology should be the sort of the go-to?
Yeah, actually, it's different from a community to another. It's based on the available infrastructure and the available capacities. So in some communities, it could be this technology could be most appropriate than other. But I believe, like in general, like most of the worldwide economies could invest into artificial intelligence. It doesn't require lots of investments. It's just a matter of programming and some human skills. So it doesn't require big infrastructure if you are developing something new or small.
Right.
If it's going bigger, it's another story. But yeah, it has tons of applications in everything. Like everything on the internet now is going into the direction of artificial intelligence. All the services and all, even big infrastructure or big machinery or products, it's also leaning now or going into the direction of using artificial intelligence. So it's important to invest in it, understand it, mainstream it, teach it at schools and universities, so people can really come up with appropriate applications that serve their communities.
All right. Well, you totally understand what needs to be done, man. And I'm looking forward to this book, Going from Zero to Hero. I'm telling you, man, push it worldwide. Absolutely. Well, look, man, we thank you so much for your time today, your insights and your perspective.